Hey everybody, it's Mike, adigitalnomad.net, and let's get right into this video. This is the top reasons to move to or stay away from Florida. As you guys know, Florida is a state in the United States. Denise, my wife, and I spend lots of time here in the wintertime, and we have a lot of experience to share with you guys, a lot of changes over the years. Every year seems to be different here in Florida, and I want this video to kind of be a summary. If you're thinking about moving to Florida, actually let me know down below in the comments. If you're thinking about leaving Florida, let me know down below in the comments. Let me know any questions you have about if you should move here, any specific questions that you're wondering about. Also, any specific concerns that you have about wanting to leave, and like list the reasons why you want. I'm kind of curious. Let's start a whole conversation going down there. I'm actually recording this video today in Tampa. This is like a little midtown area just south of I-275. There's a Whole Foods here. There's this plaza behind me you can see with the Christmas tree. And I don't really spend too much time in Tampa. Actually, if you ask me, if you want to know about some of my favorite places in Florida, Tampa area is not one of them. If I can choose some other places, although it's better than some other alternatives, okay, in the state. Like, I'm not really a fan of the East Coast so much at all, actually. That's kind of the short. And what I really like, actually, if you want to know my favorite places in Florida, since we're talking about Florida here, it would be Southwest Florida, anywhere from Sarasota down to Naples and anywhere in between. Denise and I like Key West. We'll go down there from time to time. And also Ocala, Gainesville, the villages in that area. And if you guys have been watching the channel, you know we got plenty of content from those areas. I'm gonna spin around, you'll be able to see all the construction. So let's get right into the video. What are some of the reasons why you would want to stay away from Florida? Well, what you see behind me, this construction, nonstop development, nonstop building, and just people, this flood of people that have moved into the state here, okay, over the last few years. That's what's going on right now. It is so out of control. Denise and I have said this in other videos. You may have picked up on it, that Florida is out of control. And there's many reasons for that, but the biggest reason by far is the flood of people that have come in here that the infrastructure just can't handle. And to kind of take this back to my own personal experience, I bought some land, 5 acres in a rural area. It's considered Naples, Florida. It's Collier County, down south, way down south. This is the Great White North, Tampa, compared to where my property is down there. It's kind of where 75 curves and goes into Alligator Alley. It's just in that area, so it's way down there. I remember I used to work from that land, and it's quiet. It's still mostly quiet. Believe it or not, it's been protected from development. But one of the reasons why I could work there in 2015, 16, and 17, I'd say, when I bought the land, was that the mobile service was not overly congested. And that's something that Denise and I see. We travel all over the place. Mobile service in most of Florida has not kept up with the congestion and the influx of people and users of mobile devices in the state of Florida. This is pretty much ubiquitous across the state. There's only a few areas that are, I'd say, that things are still pretty good. And there are some small, tiny pockets in Southwest Florida if you know where to go. And basically those are kind of more expensive areas where actually a lot of people can't afford to be. And near mobile towers, super expensive areas, I'd say. There's that plaza. And the other areas, we're up in like the villages, Ocala, Gainesville, also not as congested yet, although getting there. Also, to go back in time, I bought a property in Ocala National Forest in 2014, and that area has really grown. They've really fixed up that area. It's around Ocala in general. They've been repaving a lot of roads, the villages too. That's been one of the fastest growing areas in the country. Gainesville's been growing. So that's it. That's the number one biggest reason why you don't want to show up here, is that it's out of control. And what am I saying? When I say it's out of control, like I said, the influx of people, but if you guys know something about history of Florida and real estate, it's boom, bust, boom, bust. It is like the epitome. It's like the extremes of booms and busts. Like when I bought a lot of my properties, I paid hardly anything, like pennies on the dollar, it seems like nowadays, for what I got, all right? But that's because it was during a bust period. And during a bust period, if you look at Florida history, what happens is the prices get jacked up to some ridiculously unsustainable levels. And when you do, what happens is, people can't afford to live, and they have to leave because they literally cannot afford to live. And that's what's happening right now. I'm definitely seeing it. So I feel like we are at the peak, or have been that way since maybe June of last year, 2022, I think, something like that. That's in my opinion anyway. I can never admit that I know where the peak is or when it's happening or anything like that. But so back in the day, 2000, when I say that, it was good to buy property. It was 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, even 14, 15 a little bit. And then it started to take off and got out of control again. So I'm sorry, I was walking around with some other people. I lost my train of thought. So, okay, so back to the histories. So those years I just mentioned were good years to buy property. After that, it's been out of control. When I say out of control, the prices have been rising, but you can't even get your hands on property. You're in bidding wars with everybody. That's the way it's been until recently, the last year, about June of 2022 to now. And what's happened since then? What's happened is inventory has been skyrocketing in certain areas. We're seeing it all over the place, and that's usually indicative of the top of the market. Not only inventory skyrocketing, but also people saying they cannot afford to live in these areas anymore because they can't. There's just, the numbers don't work. And so again, Florida is, if you look at all states in the United States, I'd say it has a long history of boom and bust cycles that are extreme. When I bought my properties, like I said, pennies on the dollar. Very thankful to have been able to acquire them when I did. Cannot acquire them anymore. There's no way. And so I got those properties at the right time, and people have been leaving. The last year, people have been leaving, and rightly so. If you've got all kinds of money from the Northeast or wherever you're coming from, and you got a really expensive property there, you may not notice it so much down here right now with what I'm saying. But if you are of average means, you'll find that, for instance, I believe the average state of Florida property sale is close to $400,000. It's more than the rest of the country. We are above, and a lot of times Florida is below. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's just not a good time to move in from a financial perspective. I can tell you in hindsight when the highs and lows were, and I can feel when something's super expensive and something super cheap, and point it out. I'm just telling you right now, things are super expensive. Not only to buy things, buy real estate, buy land, but to build on them. It's expensive. I know we're into some projects right now, but you really got to be careful what you're doing, and we have to be careful too. And I'm not saying it's the wisest thing to do right now, but we're doing it. But we're also not at the level of expense that other people are at. All right, now what are some things that attract you to Florida? What are some benefits of being in Florida? Because I think what I started off with is a lot of negative financial stuff. And you make one wrong financial mistake and you can be really screwed for a long time. And keep in mind that if you are not of a really good financial means and you try to get into Florida right now and you shoehorn yourself into something, well, what if the value drops? Which I think it will, value of real estate. What if you're underwater in your mortgage? What if you can't do anything but pay, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70, $100,000 to get out of your mortgage? Would you be able to do that? Especially if you lost your job, if the economy tanks in here, because what happens is, it's not just for you, it's for everybody around here. And then when I go back into the history of Florida and the boom bust cycles and the extremes, what tends to happen is, even though there's periods of extreme in-migration like there are right now in the state of Florida, during the bust, what happens is people leave and it becomes like a ghost town. And I know that's hard to believe right now. I mean, look at what's going on around me with all this construction. But we are on the precipice and right on the level of where that might happen momentarily, anytime. And I'm seeing people leave now. I'm seeing people leave for Georgia, for North Carolina. Not to say that North Carolina is necessarily that much cheaper, although Raleigh, if you know anything about Raleigh real estate, let me know. Check out my other channel, Mike Young Real Estate. I'm over there, so I'm fooling with the colors. I still think Raleigh's pretty good. Florida's had a lot of negatives that have been, maybe a lot of them have been done away with because of working remote. And if you can work remote and live anywhere, that wasn't a factor in the past of Florida real estate, but I still think it's going to go down. Keep that in mind. You may end up getting foreclosed on if you cannot handle that financial burden of underwater and you having to sell because you lost your job. and you had to move somewhere else. Like I said, maybe it's not so much a factor anymore because, you know, work remote. Everybody works remote. Most people can work remote. I don't know. Do you work remote? Let me know. Anyway, let's talk about some good things about Florida. The winter time, like right now. Look, people are out playing. It's warm. It's awesome in the winter time. When I say the winter time, I mean December, January, February. Outside of that, it's too damn hot, too many bugs, too much humidity. We were just down in Key West and made a video about how my glass was sweating indoors in a restaurant where it was air conditioned. It was sweating out of control like I'd never seen anything before. That's just how it gets. You can never get comfortable. So good part is you avoid the winters up north and freezing. Like I cannot stand them. And light, okay? So much more light down here. If you have seasonal affective disorder, you know what I'm talking about. You need to get light. You need to get enough light. And you can't get it in the wintertime above the Florida-Georgia line, okay? So what do? You come down to Florida and everything changes. Don't let somebody say that you can just do light therapy. If you guys go outside and walk outside and get your exercise like Denise and I do every single day, there's no making up for that because you're in the dark over there. At least every single day is longer here because you're closer to where the sun is at the equator. And you can go out during daylight hours. You can get the sun's energy, you know, all that is important. So I value all of that. But in the summertime, it's even worse. So most of the year is actually, it's not good, okay? There are some times where it's good, when like in the wintertime, but most of the year, we're not here. We're somewhere else. I would encourage snowbirding and part-time living. And by the way, we have a snowbird group. It's like 100,000 people. It's called Florida Snowbirds on Facebook. So check it out. Join that group. You can ask all kinds of questions and learn what's going on. Florida Snowbirds with a smiley face after on Facebook. And you'll know it's us because we're about 95,000 people at this recording of this video, which is December of 2023. Actually, I want to show you guys this chalk, this 3D chalking thing. You can see there's all kinds of activity and people around me. Can you see this? Yeah, check that out. I'm trying to do this in one take so I don't have to record it again. But you can see, there you go. Get a good view of that. So that's why we're here. We're going to be here no matter what, because if I'm in the United States and I want to be in a place in the wintertime where I'm actually getting enough sunlight so I can feel good, which I think is very important. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to our channel, aplantbaseddiet.org. Shortcut is plantbasedvideos.info. Check out my book, Live to 150, LIVETO150.org. It's totally free. Anyway, that's why we're here. If we're in the United States, otherwise we got to go to another country, which we're also involved in other stuff in other countries, but Florida's the best place in the U.S. Another thing about Florida is there's no state income tax, right? Okay, well, that's a good thing, but they get you in other ways, like insurance. If you have to have property insurance, especially if you live near the coast, it's outrageous. Property taxes are twice as much as you think. They're like 2% of the assessed value instead of 1%. There are some stopgaps. Any property, I think, is limited to 3% per year increase in assessed values, as long as you get it at a low price, which you cannot do today, okay? Then you're protected. And if it's your homestead, the first $25,000, which nowadays is almost nothing, per person, if you're married, it's $50,000, is exempt from taxes, except for the base fees like trash and things like that for the county. So there are ways around the taxes, but property taxes are gonna get you. Vehicle insurance is high. Drivers are outrageously crazy in the state. There's little to no enforcement, including the speed limits, just so you know. And by the way, since things have been out of control here the last year or two, people aren't as friendly as they used to be here in Florida. They used to be really friendly. I'm just telling you, it's not that way anymore. Not the average Joe or Jane out there. People are stressed out right now, okay? There's too much, all that, just the vibe of everyone moving in and all the extra activity that we're not used to, that it creates a different culture, okay? And we definitely see that in the more urban areas. We're spending more time away from Southwest Florida than we have in the past, although we stopped doing our events too. Well, some of them anyway. And we're spending more time in the Village as a retirement community, which is the world's largest retirement community. Check out tours of the squares we have. There's 3 squares here on the channel at digitalnomad.net. So if you're looking to retire, right now, move. If you're already here, like we're here, we're not going anywhere. And we're not acquiring any really expensive real estate right now, I wouldn't recommend, because if we're going to hit a downturn, which I do believe we will in terms of prices, you are going to be left holding the bag, and it's not going to be a good position to be in. So let's kind of summarize these things. Good things are weather, winter temperatures in December, January, February. Rest of the year, not good. Too damn hot. I got to go up north. Denise has to go up north. We like it perfect all the time. It's anything but perfect here in Florida outside of December, January, and February. November, we're working our way down here. March, we're working our way out of here. So we got those 3 months, and actually January, we spend a lot of time. We're doing our own cruise, by the way, if you want to do that. And you want to get out of the cold weather, just do our cruise, the Health Optimization Cruise at healthoptimizationcruise.org. We're already going to be selling tickets for 2025 pretty soon. That sales in January, and then the Amazon Fruit Festival in January too, so check that out online. I'm going to keep spinning around. I like that there's no traffic. This is kind of like, it's a midtown, it's kind of more like a downtown almost, and they don't allow any vehicle traffic in here. Oh boy. So another thing is, if you come to Florida and you want to be a resident of the state of Florida, you have to do some real good research here online, which I did in 2014 when I became a resident of Florida. Don't let anybody say that you have to have X number of days in the state and X number of days somewhere else. It is not black and white. It is not. Anybody who says it's black and white is not an attorney. You need to go see an attorney. Get some legal advice, which I am not giving you. I'm just giving you general advice. But do your research. You'll find that there's a checklist of like 50 different things, literally, including voting, library card, signing a declaration of domicile, which a lot of Florida residents tell me they never even heard of before. They didn't do their research, okay? Florida will always take you, but your other state that you're leaving from may not let you go unless you do as many of these 50 or so things that you possibly can do. And there's a ridiculous number. Where's your doctors? Where's your dentist? Are you actually seeing them in Florida? Okay, you have to prove that Florida is your home, all right? Because again, Florida will always take you, but the state that you are leaving may not want to relinquish you. And again, it is anything but black and white. It is the grayest of gray areas. And again, anybody who insists that it is doesn't know what they're talking about. And they probably never, as a Florida resident, even signed something called a Declaration of Domicile, which you get filed and registered of deeds in the county where you own property that it is your home. Go look it up. All right. Important, because I don't want somebody coming to Florida and say, my other state didn't let me go. Mike said it was so great. I'm only here and whatever. And, we travel all the time, by the way. This is all more important than ever. Like, where's your home? Where's your domicile? Where's your primary residence? Because people ask me all the time, Mike, where are you from? Denise, where are you from? The answer now is the future. That's it, the future. Because back in the day, everybody lived in 4 walls and a roof and went from 4 walls and a roof to their job and back 5 days a week, right? Holidays off, didn't work on the weekends. We don't live in that world anymore. It's 2023. You can live and work anywhere. You can be a digital nomad like I am. Nomad Nation, by the way, look those up. Look those guys up online. They're a good group to be in. You can literally just be going from one place to the next all the time, but you have to claim somewhere as your home. And it's not black and white. That's what I'm saying. This is 2023. Whew. Okay. Another thing about the culture here in Florida right now, it's negative, is the roads, the drivers. I told you guys about this. There's just too many cars on the road. Florida is always pro-business, okay? A lot of states are anti-business, I'd say. Florida always seems to be pro-business. They seem to be doing what they can to attract people to sign up and set up new businesses and run out of here. And the last thing they want to do is pull all the drivers over and give them tickets for all kinds of stuff, and they don't. So it's kind of what goes on here. On the road, you can understand from that perspective that they just don't want to do anything that's going to, get people to feel like the police want them to leave or whatever. There's very little enforcement of stuff, and although there's there's 2 Floridas too. You're going to know this: the coasts, meaning outside the interstates, meaning west of 75 or east of 95, on the Atlantic side. Gulf side is 75. So west, you're outside. You're on lowlands. You're on waterfront property for the most part. Florida, if climate change happens, if the seas rise, if the sea level goes up, those areas are going to be most impacted. Those are also probably the most democratic areas, liberal areas, if that's where you want to be. If you want something that's more Republican, go in the middle of the state, which is a much bigger area, much more conservative area. Although this entire state of Florida in general is conservative. Some people who are Democrat liberals think it's horrible because of that. I think it's great, actually. You actually do really have some real freedom here, okay? Do what you want for the most part. Although you really need to bring these bags and bags of cash with you nowadays if you're wanting to do that in this state. It's not like it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It wasn't even that long ago, but it's part of the cycle. Every 10 to 20 years, we go through this complete cycle. And I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Where do you think we are in the cycle here in Florida? Have you lived in Florida for a long time? Share this video with friends who are considering either moving to Florida or leaving the state. Because like I said, we don't really have a ton of money invested here in Florida. I was able to get stuff for pennies on the dollar back in the day. So we're not going to sell, although we have been trying to sell some of the stuff that we have. We're not selling everything and getting out. Although in the process of trying to sell some of the stuff that we have, I've also noticed that the market kind of stalled out. So as a buyer, you do have more leverage. And this is me speaking as a realtor. I am not a realtor in Florida. I am a real estate agent in North Carolina, the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area specifically. If you want any help, let me know, or just text me 240-205-0417. 240-205-0417. I can also hook you up with somebody here in Florida if you want to. But right now, it's definitely swung into a buyer's market, which is crazy for me to say because it's been such a seller's market. I mean, they've been auctioning off new construction for the past couple of years. You've had to bid on new construction. You don't have to do that anymore. I look around these new construction neighborhoods, they have so many damn houses. They're doing buy downs. They're doing realtor bonuses. What's a buy down? A buy down is like, say you can get a 7% 30-year fixed rate on a mortgage. Well, a buy down means they're going to buy down that rate to like 4% for the first couple of years, so you get to qualify at a much lower rate. It means that you might get stuck holding the bag again if you can't increase your income or if you lose your job. And things are going to slow down here, I'm telling you. This is the peak. Remember, Florida has this boom bust cycle that is amplified and magnified much more so than the rest of the country, in my opinion, especially coming from a real estate background and a realtor background. And that's one thing I like about Raleigh is that it's a much more level area. But the problem with Raleigh, here's the reason why I'm here, is the winters are, they're not super, super cold, but it seems like nobody's winter is super cold anymore. But you miss that sunlight in the wintertime. You miss the feeling good, the energy from the sun. Where is it? Up in there? Somewhere. I don't know if you can see it or not. But that's why I'm here. And I cover myself, but I cover myself because the sun is so damn powerful and you just cannot get what's lacking in the wintertime. So that's why we're here. Think about why you want to be here. Another thing is just people, I think I mentioned earlier, I want to mention again, I want to reiterate, people's attitudes, not as welcoming as in the past. And I think that's more of a signal of where we are in the market cycle. Because when Florida really needs people, really wants people, and I've seen it before, then they're very, very welcoming. And when then the opposite's true, like now, they don't need any more people unless you're selling homes to them. It started swinging that way in the home sales. They're like, oh, please, because they want to sell you a house because the buyers have disappeared. But you can tell in the general attitude of people you meet on the street, everyone's feeling like there's too many people have moved in here and we need to thin out a little bit. So that's where we are in Florida. And again, most states in the United States, if you're living somewhere else in the US, they don't get to these kind of extremes. You'll be like, Mike, what are you talking about? Especially if you haven't spent much time in Florida. But I'm trying to give you as honest an opinion as I possibly can so that you don't have to come down here and make a giant move and not recognize exactly what it is that you're getting into. Now let me think if I've forgotten anything else, because there's so many facets to this. Oh boy, but let me just talk about growing food. In case you guys have never been to Florida and you want to grow food, we're in the food growing with a plantbaseddiet.org. The growing season here is actually the opposite of what you'd think it would be, because all the time when you want to grow your fruits and vegetables is now in the wintertime. The growing season is actually in the winter. They're playing ball in the wintertime. They're throwing the ball. They threw a ball from all the way up there, didn't they? I think they did. Yeah. Yeah, somebody threw it from all the way up there. Hold on. He's trying to throw it back up. I don't think he's going to get it. But it came from up there, one of the balconies, I think. So yeah, the growing season is in the wintertime. Just like humans can't handle the damn heat in the summertime over here, neither can the plants, unless you're talking about tropical fruit. And if you are talking about tropical fruit, you need to be on islands or super coastal areas. Anywhere you get inland, definitely inside the interstates, like I talked about earlier, that's a different part of Florida. The nights are too damn cold. The days are too incredibly hot. So either way, you're gonna get, your plants are not gonna be happy. And when your plants aren't happy, they're just not gonna grow, or you're gonna lose all your fruit or something like that. So Florida is a very difficult place to be in because of that. And another thing, of course, how can I make a video about Florida without talking about the hurricanes, okay? Hurricane season is always happening here in Florida, generally between, I think about August and end of October. That's generally when the biggest thing is, and I'd say the peak of that hurricane season is September through the first week or two of October. Sometimes in November. What happens if you look at the maps, if you've been asleep and you don't know anything about Florida, what happens is they eventually hit the rest of the East Coast too, but Florida is ground zero for where almost every hurricane crosses land. So if you live on the coast of Florida and you're here during these times, August, September, October, good chances you're going to experience a direct hit from a hurricane. And at least one of our properties has had a direct hit and will continue. All of them eventually will get direct hits. It's not a question of if, but when. So you got to build construction resistant properties. You got to get these properties up off the ground too, because there's severe problems with flooding here in Florida. If you didn't know, there are issues everywhere. It used to be an entire swamp. The whole state was really, and that's why the Native Americans, I think, they also were migratory people. They didn't stay down here in the summertime. There was no air conditioning back then either. They'd only be down here during the cold months. They were smart. And they didn't build anything permanent necessarily unless you're on super high ground in Florida, and there is almost no super high ground. Almost everything's too low. If you look at the construction of houses around here, stuff that's built older construction of houses is built lower to the ground. The newer it is, the higher off the ground it is. They have to actually either lift it off the ground with pilings or stilts, or they have to fill in all the soil and dirt and raise it up off the ground, sometimes 8-10 feet. A lot of these places, especially near the coast, just like any other beach community, if you think about it, need to be like a story off the ground. Now that is true way inland in Florida, okay? It's not like your normal place. So consider that if you're buying an older house, you have to get something called an elevation certificate here to prove that you're not too low so that you don't need to buy flood insurance, which is absolutely ridiculously expensive. And the only way to cure that is to raise the whole house off the ground, really start all over and build new. And a lot of times, by the way, we're getting into real estate here in Florida, if your house gets damaged because of a hurricane or storm and it's more than 50% damage to the structure based on the assessed value of the local government, they will make you rebuild completely with all new updated county codes and standards, which means you got to raise everything off the ground, all kinds of hurricane construction with glass and windows, roof, all this kind of stuff. And by the way, you have to replace your roof, I think about every 10 years, especially if you have asphalt. They will not cover your insurance because they know that when your roof comes apart, especially asphalt roofs, your whole house comes apart in the middle of a hurricane and whatnot. I know that's a lot. So it's super expensive to own a house around here, like a regular dwelling unit. It's way more than you think, especially now because the prices have gone up, especially the last couple of years. And I'm not just talking about owning, I'm talking about renting. People that I've known that have left the state, a lot of times they're more renters because they've been hit even harder. They don't have any equity. They have not had the benefits of the inflation hedge that owning real estate provides. And for us, it's been a great benefit owning real estate during this time and hedging inflation because, as we all know, the federal government in the U.S. has printed all this money and devalued everything, which has caused inflation, especially in the real estate sector, which you can't make any more real estate. So all that happens over there is that the prices just go up. So if you're renting during this time frame, especially in a popular state like Florida, very, very popular state, you are going to be pushed out of the state. And that's what's been happening. Renters, especially longer term renters, are being pushed out, or they're flooded out, or they're hurricaned out, stormed out. And when they have to rebuild, They can't rebuild like they did. They can't just say, oh, even if they didn't have insurance, they know that there's no wisdom in rebuilding a property like that is defective because it's so low to the ground and subject to flooding, and they're not willing to put all the money in to make it hurricane proof or hurricane resistant. Whew. Sorry, this is important. This is important for you guys to know. I know this is probably going to go on, now that I think about it, this is going to go on my real estate channel and on digitalnomad.net, on that channel, Mike Young Real Estate and digitalnomad.net. And like I said, if you guys are interested in Raleigh, if all this sounds like it's too much for you, well, we're in Raleigh too, okay? We're not physically there at this moment in time, but I can go back, I can help you at any time. We're nomads. And I love Raleigh, the whole area, Wake Forest, Cary, Rollsville, Youngsville, Franklinton, Henderson, all these areas, Franklin County, Wake County. They're great places. Yeah, the prices have gone up, but they are overall much more well balanced. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Florida, as much as it has some super great advantages, and we are residents of the state of Florida. Like I said, I've done everything I possibly could to ensure that, and I suggest you do too. You get a lot of benefits, and but it's not as well balanced. But I don't want to be up north in the wintertime, and even I'd say even Raleigh gets pretty damn hot in the summertime. We need to head for the mountains, okay? Which you can do, okay? Not every place is perfect. And even Raleigh gets some of these hurricanes that pass through Florida or miss Florida. Occasionally they miss Florida too. So if you don't like Florida, let me know what your other suggestions are here in the comments. Where would you recommend that somebody land if they don't land in the state of Florida? And I say that word, Florida, so much. But, you know, it's such a great place. Like I said, in the wintertime, you don't have to worry about the hurricanes in the wintertime. You don't have to worry about the bugs in the wintertime. You don't have to worry about the humidity in the wintertime. Like, everybody's out here having a blast. This is almost Christmas, okay? Christmas is on Monday. I'm recording this video on Friday. And we're all out here partying, and it's a good time. And, you know, but I don't want to be out here in the summertime. You have to have air conditioning here. I've talked to people about this before. We got projects in Ecuador. We don't need air conditioning over there. It's constant temperatures. It's really nice all the time. I even suggest to a Floridian, oh, we don't need air conditioning. They're like, what? How is that even possible? Because it's not just the heat, it's the humidity around here. Everything's constantly sweating, all the glasses and stuff. And it's unbearable. You're not gonna be living outdoors here in the summertime. You're gonna be living indoors. You're gonna be stuck indoors, if you ask me. Otherwise, even when you get out of your car to go to a store, you'll find that you are sweating all the time over here, okay? That's just the way it is. But, you know, we don't live in a perfect world. And hopefully this video is giving you guys some insight onto what, making a decision as to whether you want to arrive in Florida, live in Florida, whether you just want a vacation, because we got Disney World over here, of course, or whether you want to leave the state of Florida. And if any of this has made sense to you, yes, give me a thumbs up, but also use the super thanks feature, or it says thanks in the lower right corner. You can tip me commensurate with the amount of value that you are receiving from this video. Hopefully my insight is providing tremendous value to you, especially the years and years I've had as a realtor. I've been licensed since 2006 continually, and we're here in 2023. So I do know a thing or two, and more of what I'm speaking about in this video is just the generic, general gist of things, okay? It doesn't necessarily apply to anybody's specific situation, although I'm sure it'll help give you an overview and where you're not gonna miss some factors. That's the thing. We've gone over so many things in this video because I do believe that all of these things are factors that you have to consider. And if you don't consider them, you're gonna say later, oh, I wish somebody told me about that. Like, why didn't somebody like just tell me about, for instance, the declaration of domicile, or that the property taxes are outrageous, you know? And like I said, the only way you're gonna get relief from these property taxes is if you buy low and you lock in. If you're buying high, there is no relief for you. This is another reason why Florida tends to have a collapse in the real estate market every 10 to 20 years, is because of all the people the new people that are moving in that are shocked when they get this real estate property bill, and it just doesn't go down. It just keeps at this outrageous amount. And just think about this. If you're buying a house that costs $500,000, which is kind of a low-cost house nowadays, remember, when I say it's not 1%, because a lot of the northeastern U.S. is 1%, that'll be $5,000 bill, no problem. That's $10,000. $10,000 just for the property tax. Then the insurance is going to be way more than you think, way more. Not only the property insurance for your house, but also the automobile insurance for your car. It's going to be way more than you think. And I guess they're in the ball. And you are going to spend so many months, if not half the year, just to pay for these two or three things I just mentioned. That's what causes the ultimate collapse of the Florida real estate market. And that's why I think we're right at the edge right now. And the only thing that might save it, in my opinion, is the fact that so many people work remote and that Florida is attractive from a work remote thing. And like I said, you'll be living indoors for most of the year because it's so damn hot here. But if you're like most people and you sit in front of a screen in a chair all day in the air conditioning, you're not going to notice any difference. Consider that, okay? I think that's not a good way to live. Actually, I think that it's going to cause all kinds of health issues for you, having a lifestyle like that. And that's why we don't stay here, because I could, stay indoors and just not go out and not get enough exercise. And by the way, you see I'm walking during this video because exercise is incredibly important. You need to get like 12,000 steps a day. That's what I would say. That's what Denise and I go for. She's actually working in an important meeting right now while I'm recording this video. See if there's anything else I can tell you about. I've gone over so many things. You see, so much of your decision making here with Florida is going to depend on the attitude of the general people around town. All right, the general vibe, and the cost of things. Can you actually afford them? And the negative parts of the hurricanes and stuff. Because there are a lot of people, just so you know, a lot of people who had that direct hit last fall, 2022, I think it was. Hurricane went straight over Sanibel and Pine Island, and people who lived even nearby had such a negative, detrimental PTSD type of impact on them that they have left those areas of Florida. There's been a lot of migration that I've seen actually in Florida from those much more expensive southern areas to the much less expensive northern area. That's, I think, another factor, another point I don't want to miss here is that in most of the United States, if you want to go and have more of a southern experience, you go further south, right? Especially on the east coast of the US. But it's not true in Florida. You have more of a southern experience when you go to northern Florida, and South Florida, anywhere below Tampa, really is not the South at all. It's just a much more expensive area and people who can afford to live there. So it's not what you would think. And that's why we're seeing a lot of in-migration right now in the state of Florida, where people are abandoning or leaving these areas of the South. And it could be because of the direct hits of hurricanes. You have more of a chance of getting hit by a hurricane the further south you are, even though the weather's better in the wintertime. Because I will tell you, the weather is not as nice when you go north in Florida in the wintertime. Sometimes it gets cold. I have a fireplace in my house in the Ocala National Forest, okay? There's no fireplaces when you get south of Tampa. You never, ever need it. So consider that there's that migration of people that are in Florida that are moving to northern Florida. So that's actually causing northern Florida to really become overpopulated for the infrastructure that's there, and we're seeing that now. I haven't really seen that before. Haven't really been through too many cycles of real estate here, so I haven't really had too much experience with northern Florida. But because of that, we are seeing elevated real estate values and a lot of similar factors happening in northern Florida that were happening in southern Florida. But you see it first in South Florida, and then people start, like I said, to leave those areas and then go up to northern Florida. So we're gonna get like one last view of these guys over here, enjoying life here in late December, like you can't do anywhere else. But yeah, it's tough, especially if you're just starting out, especially if you're a renter, you don't own property, you don't own real estate. I would not recommend that you go to Florida at this point in time. I would say wait it out. This is just my general random guy on the internet talking. Wait it out. There's going to be a correction in terms of prices. There's going to be a crash. We're already seeing the exponential rise in inventory that's out there, doesn't mean it's time to buy. It means there's about to be a correction here in the prices, if you ask me. All right, that's my opinion on this. And if you're in Florida and you want to leave and get out of the state and go somewhere else, maybe you want to look at another country. And if you're a digital nomad like I am, maybe check out Nomad Nation. There's lots of opportunities there. But going up north, I like the north. I just don't like it in the wintertime. I know, the north, I feel like developed years ago, back in the day. Here comes the ball again. Because there was no air conditioning and there was only heat. So the north made sense in the wintertime and nobody wanted to go south. But, I don't even like areas that you need air conditioning personally, because it's even the DC area, Northern Virginia, other places further up the coast. If you're at a lower elevation, it's too hot. So consider higher elevation properties. I see a lot of people who do have mountain houses up north for the summertime, and they're down in Florida in the wintertime. Make sure it's hurricane resistant. Make sure that you can handle the carrying cost of that property. Check out our Florida Snowbirds group on Facebook if you want to know about rental rates and things, because there's lots of rental properties in there. Don't assume that you're going to be able to buy today's prices and that your rent's going to cover you and make it so that you can afford to do this. I would say it's very risky at this point too. It's possible that you're going to have some money coming in, but real estate, especially residential real estate, is always very tricky to do from a cash flowing perspective. And I'm sure that everybody has an example that they can spout out about that to verify. So it's getting really crowded around here right now. Everybody's out here for lunch, so I'm gonna head back. I'm gonna finish up this video. If there's anything I thought about after the fact that I recorded this video, I will put it down in the comments below. I truly hope that this has been a complete guide to this, the good, the bad, the ugly. Whether you want to move to Florida, whether you want to leave the state, and just the state of the state, where we are right now in Florida. I'd say it's really 2020. It includes so much of last year, and definitely this year, 2023. And I'm guessing by the time 2024 rolls around, which isn't too far away, you're going to see that we've entered a new phase, which is the collapse of the Florida real estate market and pricing coming down, I would think. So if you're new and you're moving in, you can handle that. Good for you. All right. This is Mike signing off. Give me a like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.